Infiniti introduced the new QX50 back in 2019. You may remember that that model used to be called the EX in Infiniti's lineup. Now basically, this is Infiniti's compact luxury SUV that is usually the most popular seller for luxury brands. You've got things like the Audi Q5, BMW X3, and Mercedes GLC in that category, all being the best seller for their respective brands. But since the QX50 has come out, this is actually not Infiniti's best seller. In fact, the old QX60, which is really aged at this point, outsells this. And today I'm gonna try and figure out why that is. You see, this car looks really nice and it has a revolutionary new engine under the hood. So why isn't it outselling the QX60? Well, that's what we're gonna find out. We're going to start off by doing a walk around of the 2021 Infiniti QX50. Not much is totally radically new for the 2021 model year. This is still a very pretty looking car, especially in this Hermosa blue paint job. This is a really nice color. The only color I like more than this is that sleek red that Infiniti does, but this is really nice as well. We have the sensory trim, which is second from the top. So we do have the adaptive LED headlights. I do really enjoy Infiniti's current design language with this sort of wavy grille here in the front, although I could do without some of the chrome. I think you can black this out as part of a package. 19-inch wheels come standard on the QX50, but on the Sensory, you're gonna get these really nice 20 inchers, and you can get those in sort of like a two-tone gray. That's really cool. Although I do like the silver accents on the wheels. Kind of reminds me of like an Audi S model. That is really nice as well. You got the chrome finish all throughout here. The side profile is a little weird on these Infinitis. You have this really weird kind of curvy C-pillar. I think the overall design language is very flowing, very water-like. It's a very good looking car. The taillights, same thing, very sleek in design here. Again, we have a lot of chrome. Infiniti does like their chrome very much. And the only thing that we have here designating this is the QX50 badge here, and then we do have all-wheel drive, letting us know that we do have four-driven wheels rather than just a front-wheel drive model. Time to hop inside the QX50. We have the Sensory trim level, which is the second from the top. Only the Autograph sits above this. And the story of the interior is really a tale of things that I love and things that I hate. There's kind of not much in between here, so let's go over all of it. We'll start with the overall design, which I think Infiniti did a really nice job on. I think that the interior is very well designed, very well laid out, very well crafted. We have a ton of very soft leather because we have the Sensory trim here. These seats, Nissan and Infiniti do some of the best seats on the market right now. They have their zero gravity technology. It really feels like I'm sitting on a cloud of air with like no pressure points. So that is really nice. Some of the materials in here do feel really great. We've got black leather all the way up through the top here. We've got this nice aluminum trim that feels quite nice here in the middle. Then we have sort of this blonde leather here on the seats. Now, this is a test car that's been beat up quite bad. We've got some spots around the blonde leather interior. So again, got to be careful when you're ordering light interiors like this. The only thing we're really missing that you get on the autography trim is you get a semi-aniline leather. You get a three-tone design either, so it adds some blue and some brown. I think it's very cool looking. You get some diamond quilted leather as well. But aside from that, we have pretty much all of the bells and whistles in terms of technology that you could possibly want, with one notable exception that I'll talk about when we get this car out on the road. But we do have an optional package here that rolls in heated and ventilated seats and some other stuff as well, making this pretty much, as near as makes no difference, as nice as the autography trim. We've got the Bose Performance Series 16 speaker audio system that does sound really nice, but it's linked to Infiniti's InTouch infotainment system, which I've complained about this system before. It uses an 8-inch touchscreen up top and a 7-inch one below. Now the 8-inch touchscreen doesn't really do much up here. You can see I have it on the map zoomed like way out so that you can kind of see the whole globe, which is really interesting. And that's pretty much all that you get on this screen. Aside from the camera system, we do have the 360-degree cameras, which are a nice feature, but again, the resolution is way lower than what I've seen in some competing luxury vehicles at the same price level as this. And the only other thing that happens up here is if you plug in Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, that's where this is going to live. It does not take up both screens. And Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard here, so that is at least nice that you can use that and not have to deal too much with Infiniti's InTouch system. Now you have this screen down here. Now this is where a lot of stuff is done. So for example, if I wanted to plug in a street address, you do that on this lower touchscreen, which has sort of a glossy finish, whereas this one's matte. So the two screens look like they came out of two different cars, which I've always thought is really weird. You also control your radio functions and stuff down here. I find the whole thing to be very confusing. Sometimes I kind of forget where stuff is located. You do at least have a bunch of physical buttons around here, making simple things like turning on the heated and ventilated seats, adjusting the fan speed easy. You have a volume knob, which is good. So it's not the worst system in the world to use, but it's definitely not among the best. Now, I mentioned that some of the materials in here feel really nice, but not all of them feel really nice. I feel like some of the upper materials here feel kind of chintzy. You do get a Alcantara headliner if you get the autography trim. The steering wheel is leather wrapped, but it doesn't feel like the nicest leather to me. The gauge clusters are absolutely nothing special. I feel like they could have taken those from any Nissan car like a Maxima or a Murano, what have you. There's not a ton of storage space here on the center console the way that this is laid out. I have this little door here, opens up to my kind of smallish cup holders. We do have a USB and a USB-C here for charging and for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you can see here this little area for storage is not very big. My ultimate test is, can I put a phone there with a couple of other items? And my phone kind of fits there, but kind of not, you know, super well. It bumps into the top here. And if I had like my mask and some hand sanitizer there, it's probably going to take up pretty much that whole area, meaning you're going to have to resort to the center console, and then you don't want to do that because that's where, you know, it's closed and you're not going to have quick access to stuff. Ditto for the shifter here. It's one of those electronic deals where you put your foot on the brake and you have a little trigger here. It feels really cheap to me. Putting it in reverse triggers the camera, putting it down puts it into drive, and you do have a manual mode, even though this car has a continuously variable transmission that I couldn't imagine you ever using manual mode. And we do have the D mode controller here with auto hold as well, which is a nice feature. D mode allows you to cycle through some drive modes that we'll get a little bit more into as well when we get it out on the road. And Infiniti, aside from having these touch screens, you can also control these screens using this little knob here, sort of like a BMW iDrive or whatever, but I haven't really found that it's super helpful. You can use it to control Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well, although those were made specifically for touch, but that screen is kind of far away. So you can use this little rotating knob if you so choose. So I will say there are things I like about the cabin, but overall I kind of find it to be not a very cohesively organized cabin. And rear seat space isn't the only area where the QX50 excels. Here in the cargo, you get 31.1 cubic feet of space, which is really great for this segment. I cross-shopped this with a lot of other compact SUVs, you know, the Audi Q5, Acura RDX, and this is bigger than almost all of them. So you can fold the seats very easily here using these triggers, although I note that sometimes they do end up hitting those front seats, which I do have pushed forward for filming purposes. But with the seats folded, you're going to get over 64 cubic feet of space, which is impressive for a vehicle of the compact size. So if you're into lots of cargo area and good back seat room, that's where the QX50 really shines. So coming back to the back seat, this is where the QX50 starts to really differentiate itself. Because this vehicle is front-wheel drive base, you have plenty of room back here, 38.7 inches of legroom, which is really great for the compact segment. Now, I'm sitting in a very upright position, but these seats do lean back a lot. Now, this is gonna make it a much more comfortable experience back here. I also have a slider right here, so I can slide this seat all the way up or all the way back. That is a rare feature here in the compact segment. We also have some other nice things. We have air vents here, we have our own climate controls, and we do have a USB and a 12-volt outlet here, which is nice. No heated or ventilated seats back here though. The other thing that is really nice here is we do have this sun visor here on the rear windows, which is a nice feature that you can get optionally on the Sensory trim, and I think standard on the autography trim. All right, so let's get the Infiniti QX50 out on the road, and we're gonna start by talking about the big story with what's under the hood here. So the QX50 only comes with one engine. It's a 2-liter, 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Now that sounds pretty standard, right? So many cars on the market today have a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, but Infiniti's is extremely unique. It's actually one of a kind. This is the world's first variable compression production engine. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means there's a little mechanism, like a secondary attachment on each one of the pistons that can raise or lower the entire piston to either raise or lower the compression of this engine. So basically it could go to high compression, which is great for efficiency, but can sometimes cause the engine to knock. It can also go to low compression that's going to give you greater power and greater torque. So on the high end, it can go to 8-to-1, or on the low end for high performance, and on the high end, it can go to 14-to-1 for higher efficiency. Now, this is a really interesting engine with a whole lot of complexity to it. You can also get this engine on the Nissan Altima. Those are the only 2 vehicles right now that have it. But I gotta say that while the technology sounds very impressive and it's very cool and it's neat that Infiniti and Nissan were innovative in this way, I don't know if I see necessarily the benefits of it, because here are the output ratings. We get 268 horsepower, which is pretty good. It's not the best in this segment. You know, the Acura RDX has more from its conventional engine, and 280 pound-feet of torque. Again, very good, but not like spectacular. I was thinking that like, oh, because of this amazing complicated technology that we'd somehow be making 300 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, or, you know, some crazy number like that. But no, the numbers are actually quite conventional. Actually, it's pretty quick-ish. I would say it's 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, so quicker than an Acura RDX, definitely quicker than a Lexus NX. But yeah, nothing like super stellar in terms of power. Now you might be saying, okay, maybe it's not power that this engine is built for. Maybe it's fuel economy. Well, the story there is also not quite too miraculous as well. We get 22 mpg in the city, 28 on the highway, and 25 combined. That's with all-wheel drive like we have here on our test model. You can also get the QX50 with front-wheel drive on all of its trim levels, and those numbers are a little better, 23 mpg in the city, 29 on the highway, and 26 combined. And I gotta say that those numbers aren't like super impressive either. The fact that Infiniti wasn't able to squeeze out 30 mpg here is just a little bit disappointing. Like, I gotta say, I drove the Nissan Maxima, or not the Maxima, the Murano a couple of years ago, and the Murano is a little bit bigger than this, and that has their old 3.5-liter V6 engine, you know, same thing with a CVT, and it has that awesome disconnecting all-wheel drive system that can default to front-wheel drive, and I believe that could get like 30 mpg and produce pretty much the same power, maybe off by like a couple of horsepower and definitely not as much torque. But when you're getting like pretty much similar numbers and similar fuel economy out of a V6, I just don't believe that this VC turbo engine was really worth all of the extra engineering and complication. And I feel like that might hurt your wallet later down in the line, because this engine is going to be more difficult to work on than a conventional 4-cylinder turbo. All right, so while the engine is really special under the hood, we've learned that it really doesn't feel that special out on the road. And let's talk about the driving experience too. I'm gonna go ahead and put it into its sport mode. We have a couple of different driving modes here. Let's floor it and see what happens. Oh man, so interestingly, Infiniti has chosen to link this impressive engine with one of Nissan's continuously variable transmissions. And now, while I usually don't have a huge problem with CVTs, I've actually liked a lot of the recent Nissan ones that I've driven. This is definitely not one of my favorites. The big problem here is that it doesn't seem to be able to settle on a ratio. It can't seem to make up its mind on where it wants to be, and it kind of simulates shifts, as you heard there, but it does it in a very rubbery way, definitely not a sporty way. This is the only vehicle I can think of in this class that has a CVT layout instead of a conventional transmission, and it kind of detracts from the feeling of this being a full luxury product. You know, you put your foot down and the responsiveness is good, but it definitely, you know, feels like the RPMs are kind of going all over the place. It's definitely not a crisp, sporty experience. Now the handling is, again, not super special either. This is a very, very comfortable car, rides beautifully. We have really thick glass, so the road noise in here is fantastic. Now the VC turbo engine also has some really fancy engine mounts. They're called active torque rods, and basically that allows the engine to be quieter most of the time. So again, the cabin in here is serene, the handling is fine, the suspension is really cushy. If you love like old school Lexus products, I think you're really going to actually enjoy the Infiniti. There's just nothing sporty about this experience. The steering definitely weights up in sport mode, but it is not what I would call nimble or pinpoint at all. Like, you can wiggle this steering around and there's definitely a lot of play to it. We have the base steering on this, so there are actually two steering systems that you can get. You can either get the rack electric, which is what we have here, or you can get Infiniti's direct adaptive steering. That's their steer-by-wire system. Now, I've driven the steer-by-wire system on their Q60 coupe, and I didn't find that to be all that special either, so I don't think you're really going to be getting a driver's car either way, no matter how you option this car. But yeah, it's definitely more towards the comfort side. You know, we've got our standard mode, we've got eco mode, which I really can't recall the last time I've driven in eco mode. I'm putting my foot down to like accelerate and I'm not going anywhere. You really, really, really have to put your foot down in eco mode to get this car to go anywhere. I can't recall the last time I've driven such a conservatively tuned eco mode. And then we do have a personal mode that we can put it in where you can kind of customize stuff, but I can't imagine people doing that, nor can I imagine anybody ever playing with the paddle shifters here. Now, interestingly, with the adaptive steering, even though I've said I probably wouldn't care either way whether it had the adaptive steering, there is one reason why you might want to opt for it. See, this car has what Nissan and Infiniti call Pro Pilot Assist. It's this really great suite of semi-autonomous driving features. Basically, it's going to combine your steering assist and your adaptive cruise control. It's going to enable one-lane driving, so you can basically, you're not quite taking your hands off the wheel, but the car will do a lot of the steering itself, and then combined with the adaptive cruise control, it makes for a much more relaxing driving experience. Now, the problem is that only works fully when you have the direct adaptive steering. And the problem with that is you can only get the direct adaptive steering on the very top autograph trim level, which means we don't have it here, which means although we have a really nice adaptive cruise control that works really well on this car, we don't have the steering that will kind of work for itself, which is really disappointed. I'm very disappointed that Infiniti has this amazing flagship technology, but they lock it on only the highest trim level and you can't get it anywhere else. So that's a little bit disappointing. So if you're lusting after a very comfortable, very competent luxury cruiser, it's quiet and comfortable, the QX50 is just fine, but I really wish that they would have made it at least somewhat more engaging to drive, and I'm a little disappointed that Infiniti's flagship technologies, that being the VC turbo and the direct adaptive steering, just aren't, one of those isn't even found until the top trim level, and I'm not that impressed with the drivetrain, if I'm being honest.
Cut.
So that was the 2021 Infiniti QX50. Pricing for the base pure trim level starts at under $38,000, making this one of the more affordable options in this segment. Now, adding all-wheel drive is going to cost $2,000 to any trim. I would say you should go for the essential trim level with all-wheel drive. That'll cost you about $47,000. This sensory trim level that you see here with all-wheel drive is about $52,000. We have some options bringing it to almost $55,000. Now, the top autograph trim with all-wheel drive Q5 is going to run you almost $57,000. So you're pretty close to where you are with this sensory trim with some options anyway. So if you're going to go that high, I think you might as well just go all in on the autography trim. Get that Pro Pilot Assist with its full steering features. Now, the Infiniti QX50 is a nice looking car with a really cool, but not necessarily groundbreaking engine under the hood that I wasn't super impressed with. The ride comfort is really well. There are some issues that I have with the interior, but it does make up for that by having a really big back seat and a really big trunk. So those are all the positive and negatives of the QX50. It's not the car that I would recommend most highly in the compact luxury segment. This segment is just way too crowded and way too good with some of its competitors, but it is maybe something that you should consider if you really like the Infiniti brand and their styling. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2021 Infiniti QX50. For more videos like it, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'm also going to include some playlists of other crossover SUVs that we've reviewed that are very close to this, so if you're cross shopping, those will come in handy. Also check us out on all of our other platforms, including our app on the iOS and Android stores, as well as our TikToks, where we make short little reviews of cars just like this in a more fun and digestible way. I'll see you next time.